Okay, so you know how we like to really get our hands dirty and dig into the nitty-gritty of things that we all interact with every day but don't always think about.
Right.
So today, get ready because we're talking about cotton.
Oh, interesting. I'm game. What about it?
I mean, it's everywhere, right? Like I'm wearing at least a little bit of it right now. I bet you are too. But yeah, but growing it, that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
And that's what we're really diving into today.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
You actually sent us this article a while back.
Yeah. It's called Cotton Cultivation Challenges. It's by a company, Farminaut. They're all about ag tech and finding solutions.
Yeah, and they lay out the hurdles farmers face in a really clear way.
For sure. It's not always pretty.
So should we just jump right into it?
Let's do it.
Okay, so one thing that really jumped out, just how tough pest control is. We're not
Oh,
talking about, shooing away a few bugs here.
well, no, not at all.
We're talking bullworms, aphids, like a horror movie for cotton plants.
Yeah, it's pretty gnarly, and it's a huge deal for farmers. It's not just like, oh, a couple plants got nibbled. We're talking about yields, quality, like this impacts their bottom line.
Right, and then there's the whole issue of pesticides, which obviously, not ideal.
Exactly, a whole other can of worms, literally.
And speaking of complicated, this article doesn't sugarcoat the water situation either. Like drought is obviously a major concern for any farmer.
For sure, for sure.
But then there's the flip side. Too much water, bad timing. It's like walking a tightrope, and it can be just as bad.
It's true. Finding that balance is key, and it's not easy, especially with water scarcity becoming a bigger and bigger global issue. Cotton needs a lot of water, so that's a big factor.
Yeah. And it's not just water, right? Like the article talked about soil depletion, erosion, salinity. Like the ground itself is fighting against them.
It all ties together. Healthy cotton needs a healthy ecosystem. That's kind of a no-brainer when you think about it, but we don't always consider the whole picture.
It's easy to forget, right? And then you throw in unpredictable weather heat waves 1 minute, frost the next. It's like, how can they plan for that?
It's incredibly tough. Climate change is the wild card here, impacting everything. You know, we talk about these challenges, but it's more than just concepts, right? These are real people's livelihoods we're talking about.
Okay. So it can feel kind of, doom and gloom when we're talking about all these challenges. But that's where things get really interesting with this article. They actually go pretty deep on solutions, specifically tech solutions.
Right. And that's what Farminaut is all about. They're not just pointing out problems, they're putting forward some really cool solutions. And the core of it is using, get this, satellite data.
Satellites, really, to help farmers. That sounds kind of sci-fi, to be honest. How does that even work?
Yeah. It's actually really fascinating. So they've got these satellites, right, orbiting Earth, and they're equipped with all these high-tech sensors.
Okay, so they're like taking pictures from space.
Kind of, but it's way more than just pictures. These sensors are picking up on these subtle variations in light that are reflected off the Earth's surface. These are like spectral signatures, and they can tell us a lot about what's happening down here.
So like a cotton field that's super healthy versus one that's stressed out, they'll reflect light differently.
Exactly. And because satellites cover so much ground, they can track these changes on a huge scale. It's like having a bird's eye view of plant health.
That's wild. But okay, so they get all this data. What do farmers do with it? Are they like analyzing satellite imagery on their own?
Not quite. That's where Farminaut's AI comes in. They have this system, and they call it Jeevan. It basically takes all that raw data from the satellites and crunches it, looks for patterns, analyzes it all.
So it's like having a supercomputer dedicated to helping farmers.
Yeah, basically. And here's the cool part. Jevin takes all this information, what kind of cotton, weather patterns, all that, and creates these personalized recommendations for each farmer.
So it's like a customized farming plan.
Exactly. Tailor-made advice based on real-time data. For example, let's say there's a part of a field that's showing signs of drought stress. Jeevan can pinpoint that specific area, and the farmer only needs to irrigate that spot instead of wasting water on the entire field.
So they save water, save money, and probably get healthier plants overall.
Exactly. And it's not just water management. This tech can be used for pest control, figuring out the best time to harvest, all sorts of things.
It's like having a crystal ball, almost, but powered by data. But what about blockchain? I saw that mentioned in the article too. So we've got satellites up in space, AI analyzing all this data, and now blockchain. I feel like we're talking about like the trifecta of tech buzzwords here.
Yeah.
How does blockchain even play into this?
Right. It does seem like a bit of a tech overload, but honestly, the way Pharmanaut uses blockchain is really cool. Basically, they're using it to create this like digital trail for your cotton from the field where it's grown to the store shelf.
So when they talk about farm to fashion, they mean you can actually track where that cotton came from.
Yep. It's all about transparency. For people who like really care about sustainability and where their clothes come from, this is huge.
For sure, for sure. Like knowing your t-shirt wasn't made using, unethical practices.
Exactly. And it's good for farmers too. It means they can actually prove they're doing things the right way and consumers will pay more for that.
Makes sense. It's a win-win. Okay, but gotta ask, is satellite monitoring like the be-all, end-all solution here? What about like drones? Aren't people using those for farming now too?
Yeah, you're right. Drones are becoming more common and they have their place, but Pharmanaut argues that satellites just like have them beat when it comes to scale. One satellite can cover so much more ground than a drone can.
Yeah, like it's not even a competition, right?
Exactly. And satellites are up there constantly collecting data day after day. Drones, you got to charge them, fly them. It's a whole thing.
Makes sense. So more efficient, and they're getting, what, like daily updates on the crops? That's got to be valuable.
Totally. But okay, let's talk results. Does any of this actually work?
Right, right. That's the million-dollar question.
Well, the article highlights some pretty impressive success stories. There was this one farmer in India struggling with drought, couldn't grow anything, started using Pharmanaut, and he was able to cut his water use by almost a third.
Wow, seriously.
And get this, his yields actually went up. It's crazy. It shows you the power of data, right?
Totally. And it's like not just good for the farmer, good for the planet too if
Yeah.
he's using less water.
Exactly. And the best part is, this isn't just about helping individual farmers, although that's obviously important. Pharmanaut is also working on these like bigger picture projects, like promoting sustainable practices and, helping farmers adapt to climate change.
So like really tackling the root of these problems.
Exactly. And it gets me thinking, like, if this tech can work for cotton, why not other crops? Coffee, grapes, anything, really.
Yeah. It's like a whole new world of possibilities.
Mhm.
This has been a really eye-opening deep dive for sure.
Hmm.
It's clear that technology like has the power to transform agriculture. But we got to use it right,
Absolutely. It's all about responsible implementation.
And on that note, we want to hear from you, our listeners. What are your thoughts on all this? Head over to our website, leave a comment. Let's keep this conversation going. And if you're interested in learning more about Pharmanaut and what they're doing, we'll have a link in the show notes. Until next time, everybody, keep those brains buzzing.